I made a tutorial about ElevenLabs. That video blew up, went viral, and got over 1 million views.
It's almost like intuitive personally, and so you kind of just have to be an artist in that sense.
It's kind of like drop everything and focus on that. When there's an opportunity, it's worth delaying everything else.
When I think of video content strategy for fast-growing startups, really one person comes to mind as the authority, Alec Wilcock of ElevenLabs. He is world-class at taking a startup, defining their video content strategy, and using that to support extremely fast growth. He did it at Veed, then he did it at Synthesia, and most recently he's done it at ElevenLabs.
YouTube SEO is like heavily underrated. You can make one video, it's got the potential to appear on 2 of the biggest search platforms in the world.
What are some of the things that startups commonly get wrong when they're trying to craft their own content strategy?
Figure out what the problems are that your product solves. Find the search terms around that have the highest volume, and then make the video that answers those search terms as best as possible. Once you've found what's working, you kind of just want to rinse and repeat that until it doesn't, because nothing works forever.
All right, Alec, I think we're live. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Well, thank you for inviting me on. I'm very excited to be here and chat everything we can about content.
I consider you like one of the premier experts when it comes to video for startups. And I think that in today's world, that is like the topic to be following, or one of the main topics to be following right now and figuring out for yourself if you're a startup. So super excited to have you here today and get into your background, get into just what are your lessons and philosophies you've developed over time with respect to video content strategy and as it relates to startups. Before we jump in, I do want to ask you a couple icebreaker questions and just like let the audience get to know you a little bit better first before we jump in. So the first question I want to ask you actually is like, what have the past 30 days looked like for you? Because I see you were on stage at the ElevenLabs Summit and you're still on the YouTube videos that are going out. It's just a lot. So tell us what the past month has looked like for you.
First of all, thank you for that intro. I'm flattered. I like to feel like I got into video and startups right place, right time, but we'll get more into that later. Last 30 days, can't lie, it's been pretty intense. I was at the ElevenLabs Summit, which was a lot of fun. It was my first time doing like street interview style content, and I've watched so many of those clips I wanted to do it myself, so it was good fun walking around, just getting people in front of the camera and asking them what they think. I've been on stage, been doing a ton of YouTube content, there's been a ton of AI model releases. ElevenLabs also just raised at an 11 billion valuation, so that's been really exciting. Just a ton of very exciting things going on, but my main focus I think has just been YouTube. My life surrounded by YouTube, and YouTube just ends up pouring out into so many different things. So very busy, but having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And just out of personal curiosity, are you based out of London nowadays or elsewhere in Europe, or where are you at?
So I'm currently based in the south of France. I'm in London probably like 20 to 30% of the time, but born in London, born in Hammersmith. But I moved to France when I was 5 years old, and I grew up in France from 5 to 17. At 17, I was like, I'm British. People always call me the English guy. I want to, live the London life. So I moved back to London. I went to university there for a few years. Then it was a lot of back and forth. And then I decided to settle in London on the 31st of January, 2020. But this popular thing called COVID happened, and I decided to move back to France because I was paying expensive rent at the time and everything was closed. So based in the south of France as we speak right now.
Yeah, awesome. I was gonna say, I mean, it's almost a superpower in terms of video to have a British accent, right? Not to diminish your skills you clearly have, but it's like, man, it's like icing on the cake.
Potentially. You know what? It's funny because there's some video opportunities where my British accent is prioritized, and then there's others where it's like, well, we're trying to tailor to an American audience here. Maybe let's not go with the British guy. But I guess there's pros and cons to it. But I like it. I think it's unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to go back to your what you were just sharing, can you tell me how'd you first get into video, and then kind of like, did you get into tech startups at the same time, or was like it one and then the other? Because I feel like those two things are like almost like multiplicatively unique, right? I just love to hear the backstory of like how you got into video and then for startups.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the story of how I got into video is pretty long, and then it transitions into startups over a long period of time. But yeah, I guess let me rewind back to when I was probably about like 10 years old. Um, Obviously, having moved to France, our cousins would come over to visit for Christmas, and my cousin, she would have a camcorder, and she'd bring this camcorder around, and she used to like record skits and funny sketches with her friends. And every time she'd bring it over, that was basically her hobby. And so we went and did that. And I don't know, I kind of just was really intrigued in video. And so the next Christmas came around and I was like, Mum, Dad, I want a camcorder. I want to make some videos. And me and my brother and sisters, we started making videos with it as well. And there's some really like embarrassing videos of me like 11, 12 years old vlogging. I'm just sitting there for like 10 minutes in front of the camera eating cereal. But I don't know. I've always had this weird thing for video, right? I thought it was fascinating, but I never knew what to make content about. Fast forward to university. I'm studying sound engineering at University of West London. And I remember scrolling Instagram through my lectures because university wasn't really for me. I still finished it. Happy I completed it. But I started scrolling through social media a lot and I was following these pages and I was like, I want to grow a following on Instagram. I want to have a theme page about skateboarding because I used to skateboard a lot of the time. And so I started like this one page about Instagram, and then I got really like obsessed with the numbers, trying to grow it month over month. And this was back at the time where video was still new to the platform. And it basically, all it was is I was just resharing a lot of clips and creating a community around skateboarding, specifically around manuals where you balance a skateboard on two wheels. And then I became obsessed with Instagram. That then became like, I started then hanging around in Facebook communities, online threads, Reddits, all about how to grow an Instagram page. And I got kind of obsessed and hooked. I started a bunch of other Instagram pages and I slowly realized that, hold on, I've got the answers to all these questions that other people are asking. And so instead of like responding with comments time and time again, I just said, well, why don't I just make videos answering these questions? And so I made my first 4 YouTube videos about like how to grow on Instagram, how to get unshadow banned, what's the best time to post, very basic questions. And I made those 4 videos, kind of forgot about them, but put them up on YouTube. And then I came back a few months later and I was like, whoa, some of these videos have got 10,000 views. And from that point on, I think I was just hooked. I was like, YouTube can actually be something. And so I started making more videos all about Instagram marketing. And that's how I started growing like a community and an audience. And I'd been doing that for 2-3 years, like throughout university. Then I moved back in with my parents trying to figure out YouTube. And I knew how to grow on social media, but I hadn't yet figured out the business part of it. Like how to monetize and the whole like, and I guess it was also still early back then because this was 2018, 19, and the creator economy has made massive leaps forward ever since, which got accelerated with COVID. And so I hadn't figured out how to monetize my own audience, my own content, my own YouTube, but I wanted to. And so I was like, you know what? I've been doing content now for 2-3 years by myself. I've got maybe 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. I've got these Instagram pages. Why don't I go and work at a company, find a job within a team? So I'm not working alone from my bedroom and learning from people on real world like scenarios and how content can actually impact a business. And I moved to London. And so this was the 31st of January, 2020. And a couple of weeks after that, one night I Googled social media jobs London. Literally, that was the keyword search term. And I ended up on workinstartups.com. And I found this job listing, and I think it was called like social media specialist. And it was for this company that I was like, this looks really cool. It's basically the Canva for video. And it was Veed.io. And that was my intro to like startups and tech. And that's how I got started. And from that point on, kind of just hit the ground running. So that's how it all began.
What an amazing backstory. What was it like interviewing at Veed? Did they offer you the job on the spot, or was it more drawn out? What was that like?
It was, at the time, they were working out of a co-working space in Holborn in London. And I was like, I put on my best shirt that I had. I was going to, to me, this was a job interview. I was completely oblivious to startups, the tech scene, the whole tech world. And so I went along, had a very casual chat with Saba, the co-founder and CEO. And yeah, kind of just explained what I would do if I did content at Veed, because they were looking for someone to kind of take care of all social media. Very casual. And I think, yeah, I think the same day, I then got a text later on being like, "So, do you want the job or not?" I was basically just like, "Yeah, sure." And that's how we got started. It was like really casual, very unserious. But I was employee number 7 to join, and at the time, it just felt like joining a group of friends that were just working on this really cool product. And I love video, and I'd been using Canva for a while, and I was like, God, imagine like Canva but for video. This is so cool. And so it was kind of like right place, right time. And I showed them my YouTube channel, and I think, and I'm pretty sure it's thanks to the fact that I have my YouTube channel. It's like a public CV, right? It's like a public track record of all the content you've done. And so I've proven that I can do it, and they just wanted me to kind of do it again, basically.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. I mean, that right there just goes to show the importance of like, you know, in today's world, it's almost like what you produce, whether that's a YouTube channel or, you know, you have a personal website or social pages, what you produce almost becomes your job application, like your resume, more so than like what you write on the paper. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I think that's so important nowadays. Like my number one piece of advice for when people want to get a job at a certain company or startup is just make the content, or even for influencers that want to get brand deals and partnerships, make the content that you would for them, but without working for them yet. That's literally the best way to get a job there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing advice. Hearing that, it just confirms to me that you, I think like me, are just born to be in startups, right? I mean, it's like the perfect fit for you personality wise, how you work. I mean, you'd say you're just a startup person through and through, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I joined Veed, it was like my intro to tech and startups, and I was like, this is so cool. It's so casual, so fun, so exciting. There's so much stuff to work on. And yeah, I kind of just became, I guess, obsessed with tech and the latest advancements in video, which then slowly transitioned into AI. And I'm now chronically online, just constantly looking at like the latest the latest releases, the latest news. And so, yeah, I'm just very involved with what's happening in the startup and tech space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you've been on just an absolute tear, I think, since Veed, and we're gonna get into some of that. I did have like one more question I wanted to ask you, just as kind of like an icebreaker, and that is, you know, you've probably, I don't want to just throw a number out there, but I imagine you've produced or had a heavy hand in the production of hundreds or maybe like 1,000 plus YouTube videos or long form videos throughout your career, right? I mean, something of that scale. Do you have a single or like top 1 or 2 just personal favorite YouTube videos that you've been involved in, either like highest performing or just like sentimental value to you? Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I've definitely got 2 that come to mind, but I don't actually rewatch much of my content. Like once it's made, it's kind of like I forget about it unless I'm studying what worked in the past. It's like, I saw an interview with Matthew McConaughey the other day, and he's basically saying he didn't watch his own movies. And I was like, I agree with that. I watch my old videos and I cringe, even ones that are from a few months ago. It's like I try and forget them. But 2 videos that stick out, I think that had a massive impact on my career. First one was at the time when ChatGPT came out, and I think it was like late 2023. And I say when it came out, when it went viral, started becoming very popular. When that came out, I made a video which was basically how to make videos with ChatGPT. And at the time, obviously, you couldn't generate videos directly, but it was the whole like getting the process from ChatGPT, copying the script, turning it into text to speech. And that video blew up, went viral, and got over 1 million views on a long form YouTube video. And that had a massive impact on the direction of my YouTube channel. Because when you get a video that does very well, it's like, oh, there's something here. And it's even more gratifying when a video that you really enjoyed making in a niche that you really like goes viral. Because I was only doing Instagram marketing up until this point. And I made that video just for fun because like I'm kind of tired of just talking about Instagram. And that shifted my channel in a whole new direction because it went viral. And I went from like 25,000 followers to 50,000 followers in probably like a month. And so I went hard on AI content then. And I was like, right, that's it. This is my new audience. This is what I want to do now. And then maybe during that content sprint, I think 2-3 months afterwards, I made a video. And this one will make a lot of sense. But I made a tutorial about ElevenLabs called How to Master ElevenLabs, the best text-to-speech tool. Because I discovered it a couple of months prior and I was like, this text-to-speech is amazing, the best voices I've ever heard. I really like it. And I started using it and became a user. And I discovered they had an affiliate marketing program. And so I made a tutorial which did really, really well because the tool was also blowing up at the time. And that also had a massive impact on my career. And it's partly thanks to that video that ElevenLabs knew who I was at the time of me then joining them. So again, YouTube is just like my proven track record and public CV.
Dude, that is the playbook right there to join a hypergrowth startup, I suppose. Just make videos and yeah, I think that's really cool. And I think hearing you, that's a really cool story. Hearing the you're coming upon like kind of into AI and video, and how ChatGPT, that video you had made, was like the first stepping stone there. I would love to. One of the questions I want to ask you is just around like experimentation and like testing the waters with video, and like where do you strike that balance? So I'm excited to get into that with you. But yeah, I haven't actually seen I think either of those videos, so I'll have to go check those out after.
I'll share the links with you after this. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I would love that. Well, great, Alec. Thank you for the backstory on you. It's always cool to hear like the origin story of people who've found expertise in their field. I do want to segue a little bit towards some of the central themes of the conversation here that I'd like to get into around like strategy and how you view that. Before as kind of a segue, I want to ask if you can share a little bit of the like behind the scenes of your the start of your time at ElevenLabs, and just to provide context to the audience. When I look at I look at the analytics of the ElevenLabs YouTube channel, basically what I see is that you had a pretty clear like before and after impact on the YouTube channel. And I think a couple things that I notice are the ElevenLabs team and the YouTube team was doing a phenomenal job prior to you joining, and I take nothing away from that. But you noticed that the new subscribers growth prior to you joining about a year ago, give or take, was pretty positive, a little bit like volatile, but a little bit more of like a steady slope curve. And then upon you joining, you see that new subscribers growth basically like it increases by 2x to 5x depending on the month, like immediately upon you joining. And then the second observation I had, which is like the unfathomable one, is monthly new views, which is like the graph is just, I'm going to definitely throw this on screen, but like it's just literally almost parabolic. So I would love to hear, it seems to me like you maybe joined the team and you had a look at the strategy that was being executed at the time. Maybe you made certain changes, or you like kind of mapped a new strategy maybe. I would love to hear, what was that like when you joined, and what are some of the things that you either changed or course corrected a little bit?
It's a great question, and I think there's a lot to uncover here. When I first joined ElevenLabs, I think they had been putting up launch videos and update videos about the latest models, the latest tools, and the video team has done and still is doing an incredible job with all of that content. I think what I did with YouTube is basically just started treating it a little bit more as a priority and making content with YouTube in mind first, rather than making content and then thinking, oh, we should also put this up on YouTube. So I started treating it as a priority. After that, I think it was about figuring out like who the audience that ElevenLabs wants to reach is, and then making content that tailors to that audience. God, there's so much. I'm trying to figure out what the right thing is to say here, because it's basically when I arrive, and I think at any company, any YouTube channel, and what we did for ElevenLabs is, what does the company want to be known for? Like, who's the audience that we're trying to reach, and how do we earn that reputation on a repeated basis? And so it's figuring out like the content system that allows us to attack those 3 points consistently. So like my go-to thing is just figure out, okay, what does ElevenLabs solve? What are the video topics that we should be making that users like? And then just go hard at that and just focus on it. Make that the main point of focus.
Interesting. And I have a couple of follow-up questions, but one is like, some of this is also related to, I think, I'd love for a takeaway from this conversation from you as well, to be like, what are some of the things that startups commonly get wrong when they're trying to craft their own content strategy? Like, what are the things that they overlook that are like fundamental? So it sounds like, based on your response there, what is the absolute most important thing that like cannot get overlooked? Is it just like making sure you have a really strong understanding of your audience and who you want that to be? Is that like fundamental, don't proceed any further until you have full clarity on that? Or is it like, would you say it's more like understanding the format? Because you mentioned in there as well, making videos for YouTube, not just like videos that you then put on YouTube. So like, I'm curious in your eyes, like which of those two is more central and core to having success?
I mean, it's a really good question. And to tackle a few points there, I think when starting out, a common mistake is probably spreading yourself too thin. And so a lot of people will hire, like get their first social media hire, and they'll basically be like, we want to do YouTube, we want to do Instagram, we want to do TikTok, but we should also be doing like Facebook pages or groups or whatever. And so I think, first of all, just tackling one platform, putting your pure focus into that, and then really understanding what content performs well on that platform. And so obviously ElevenLabs is producing incredible motion design videos to talk about their latest models, but it's not necessarily the content that's going to show up in search and that's going to show up in suggested when someone's browsing YouTube. And so I like to think of, and I'm a really big fan of the, I guess, in-house influencer. And so all I've done is I've kind of come in as a YouTuber, and I'm basically being a YouTuber for ElevenLabs. And I think that is an approach that more and more people should be taking, is having a dedicated creator or a dedicated few creators, because we've got multiple people on the ElevenLabs YouTube channel now, but coming in and creating content that YouTube consumers and YouTube viewers will like. And so ElevenLabs, the product, provides a ton of value. And in the motion and announcement videos, they talk about the value that the product provides. But what I came in to do was basically make the content valuable on its own as well, rather than just talking about the product. And so it's essentially what Gary Vee says with jab, 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 right hook in that book. It's all about providing the value up front. And then as long as you provide enough value, you could ask people to go and check out the latest tool or tell them about it. They'll be much more willing to. Because they feel like they just got so much out of your content. And I think that's how you create like consistent subscriber growth. And that's probably like the biggest thing that I did to impact the numbers from one month to the next.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I want to ask you a question related to team building, like later on in our interview. But just since you mentioned it a moment ago, and I don't want to forget to ask this, you mentioned that a really good shortcut to follow is like have people on the team who are YouTubers, like on their own, like on the side. And I think there's, that makes sure that they know the YouTube game and they have the muscle memory. Would you almost, like, do you almost think that that's like a necessity for companies that have high enough expectations for their YouTube channel? Should they almost like not attempt YouTube unless they have someone full-time or at least part-time who does YouTube very seriously on the side? Do you think that's a necessity or like not really?
It's a good question. I think you can do well on YouTube without it, but it does eventually become a necessity to kind of to grow after you've hit maybe like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. At Veed, I think we did that pretty well without me being like I say we were just making tons of videos, but I wasn't thinking about being the creator for the company then. When I was at Veed, it was more just like, okay, this keyword, that keyword, this keyword, let's make loads of videos. What problem is the tool solving? Here's exactly how to solve it. And so I think you can have a massive impact on YouTube without having dedicated in-house creators for YouTube. But I mean, you still need someone to kind of own the entire process of creating content from start to finish, which is a massive job on its own. But we can talk about that more later because there's a lot to cover there.
Yeah. Didn't mean to put you on the spot with such a black and white answer like that. But yeah, we'll absolutely dive into more of the nuance of that later in the interview. That's one of my topics I'm looking forward to most. Well, if it's cool, Alec, I'd like to. Are you cool with us double clicking a little bit on YouTube strategy specifically? Because you've been kind of touching on some of those themes. I think a lot of the overarching themes I've been hearing from you are like understanding your audience, trying to cater to like what problems do they have, what questions are they asking, trying to be the ones who are there answering those for them. And video is a great medium for that. So I'm hearing maybe some themes around like principles that apply to YouTube strategy. Could you summarize for me and the audience, like what is your like go-to YouTube strategy? Is there a playbook to it, or what do you typically execute there?
Yeah, there is a playbook, and I'm happy to share it because it's a playbook that I did it at Veed, Synthesia, and it's also the one that I started doing when I came into ElevenLabs. And on top of that, it's also what I do with my personal YouTube channel as well. And to break it down really simply, like to be really practical, when starting a new YouTube channel, let's say we started a new SaaS, figure out what the problems are that your product solves, find the search terms around that have the highest volume, and then make the video that answers those search terms as best as possible. So your video needs to heavily be aligned with the search terms, and you want to teach people how to solve the problem they're searching for while bringing in your product in as a solution. And so that's literally the blueprint. To make it really simple, it's essentially SEO. It's YouTube SEO is like heavily underrated. YouTube is like the second biggest search platform in the world. It's owned by the first, and it's the only place on the internet where you can make one video and it's got the potential to appear on two of the biggest search platforms in the world. So YouTube SEO is heavily underrated when starting out. So that's what I would do is the first thing, start out with SEO content, because that's evergreen. You might be getting less views, but the intent of those views, like when you're solving a problem and your product solves a problem, is a lot higher. And so it's a lot easier to get new users when, even if you're getting 100 searches a month or 100 views a month, when it's like how to create text-to-speech voiceovers online, ElevenLabs solves that perfectly. And so even if it only gets 100 views, those views are way more valuable than if we got a viral YouTube short. But building a foundation of evergreen SEO YouTube content would be the first thing. And then once you've kind of cracked that a little bit and you're starting to see like steady growth month over month, then I would start looking more and more into what I like to call suggested content. And that's essentially content that's just optimized to getting recommended in the algorithm, whether that's on like the YouTube homepage or the recommended section. And that, in my opinion, is content that's a lot harder, but if done right, can have a massive impact as well. So that's my playbook. It's YouTube SEO and then suggested content.
Interesting. Is suggested content in your experience, is it a little bit less established keyword volume, and it's like this evergreen kind of topic, and it's a little more like in the now trending, and like maybe people aren't searching for it yet, but it's, maybe it's like, Sea Dance 2 or Nano Banana 2. It's like more of just like what YouTube knows is trending, but you might not know yet. Like, what is the difference there?
Exactly. Suggested content, that I think the easiest way to make suggested content do well is to tap into trends. And so for an example, at ElevenLabs, every time a new AI model comes out with image and video inside of ElevenLabs, let's say we release Nano Banana into ElevenLabs image and video, we would then make a video about that because we know it's going to be a trending topic at the time. And back in September, when Nano Banana first came out, we actually made a video about it, tapping into the trend. And it wasn't optimized towards search, but it was optimized towards, what would make someone stop in their tracks if they were on YouTube, click on the video, watch it, and also enjoy it. And so I think that's it. Like the easiest way to start doing this suggested content is to tap into trends.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Follow-up question on that. On some of the suggested content that, that's like a battleground, right? Like who's gonna kind of, when Nano Banana 2 comes out, YouTube's maybe looking for like, who are we gonna plug oftentimes as the suggested video? How much effort or strategy goes into like the frame by frame, like YouTube video anatomy? Like, we need to make sure that the first 15 seconds is like perfectly optimal, and that's critical to success. Like how much of it is that versus just you guys kind of like lean on experience, just let it rip and get it out there and kind of optimize for speed over everything else?
I think there's definitely a balance. And I would say it can vary depending on obviously the timeline you've got to make the video, but also the type of content you're making. And so with any video, no matter if it's evergreen or suggested, I focus on having like the first 15 to 30 seconds kind of scripted word for word, because you really want to hit the points home and make sure the viewer knows that they're in the right place. After that, if it's like an evergreen video and you've got time to make it, I would kind of bullet point structure the rest of the content, because that way you can kind of flow through it in a natural way so you don't seem too robotic on camera. And then with suggested content, I think it's a similar approach, but with suggested content, when you are tapping into trends, like you mentioned, sometimes you do have to let it rip a little bit more, just because the timeline you've got or the time frame is a lot smaller. So like if Nano Banana comes out, Nano Banana 2 came out last week, and we literally, I think we had a 24-hour turnaround. I wrote a quick script. I did the intro word for word, did some bullet points. I ran it through Claude, kind of went back and forth a few times with that, and then had a word for word that I could paste into my prompter, because this time I wanted to record it really quickly. And then after that, after having recorded, send it over to Joseph, who's the in-house editor and does all the YouTube content at ElevenLabs. Does an incredible job at it. And then it's kind of just like spend the evening and then the next morning all the way until probably like 4 or 5 p.m. if we can get it released. So it's about 24-hour turnaround on a YouTube video when we're trying to tap into a trend.
Dude, that is like it's shocking.
It's kind of like drop everything and focus on that. Like if you think there's an opportunity, you have to like delay the schedule of everything else. And I'm really bad at keeping a consistent calendar when it comes to content, because things are always moving around, especially in AI. Like there's new model releases every week. ElevenLabs releases exceptional models, and sometimes research is ready all of a sudden and they've just made a breakthrough and you need to kind of talk about it. And so, yeah, really hard to be consistent, but when there's an opportunity, it's worth delaying everything else for 24 to 48 hours, just so you've got the chance at going viral. Because we've done this a few times now, and we might consistently be getting like 10 to 20,000 views in the first week. But if we manage to hit like a home run, it can be like 30 to 800,000 views in the first week. So it's worth dropping everything.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the payback is definitely worth it. I want to ask, and by the way, I think even if it's all hands on deck, I mean, a 24-hour turnaround for a YouTube video that, you know, I'm sure a lot of people listening have seen them. They're from ElevenLabs. You and your team are like super polished still, and like super, like very almost perfection. That is just almost unbelievable, that turnaround time. I want to ask though, because I feel like you were mentioning like when there's an opportunity to strike while the iron is hot and capitalize and be opportunistic, you got to like drop everything and just go after it. And that, like you said, is well worth it most of the time. But you mentioned like you have to be willing to delay the timeline of everything else. I am curious, like, what does that usually look like in reality for you and your team? Do you just bite off like maybe 20% less than you would have in like a different industry, and you just, because you know that these things are going to be coming down the pike? Or do you like still kind of overreach in terms of your content calendar and what you're aspiring to create, but you do just literally like, if something like this comes up, you just delay everything out by a few days? How do you reconcile that?
I mean, it's a good question, and to be fair, I'm still figuring it out. I think at ElevenLabs, we're very ambitious with the content calendar, or when an opportunity does come, we do just delay everything. But then there's always another opportunity that comes, and another opportunity, and so I think it's about like trying to be ruthless with the prioritization in terms of what you think can have the most impact. But we do try and balance it between jumping on a trend and also having an evergreen video, because I think it's great to have a balance of the two in your strategy. But sometimes there might be a week where there's multiple trends that we need to tap into, and we might just focus on trends for a couple of weeks. And then we might have a grace period where we're focusing more on the evergreen side of YouTube. But sometimes there is occasionally the video that we end up just scrapping forever because we thought it was a good idea. It kept on getting pushed back and back and back, and then we have to forget about it. But then there's also like tailoring to the full company schedule, right? We might be doing a big product launch, and so you've also got to balance that. So yeah, I think it's just a question of getting your priorities right about what content can have the most impact on the business.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned ruthless prioritization as well. I think, it sounds like there are a few mental models you need to take to your day-to-day in order to I mean, yeah, man, at Opus Clip, I think we're less of a well-oiled machine around like capitalizing on these trends and such that you all are at ElevenLabs, but we still, from the product side, content side, It is like, I mean, it's something that every department feels, I think, just the dizziness of the space. Yeah,
and I don't know. I think you guys are doing great, and I've got to say, like from the outside, it might look like we're a well-oiled machine, but we're like, it feels like we're just sprinting and like, oh, we dropped this video, we dropped that. Oh, this idea is it feels all over the place at this speed. But I think it's normal for any successful YouTube channel, and especially any successful company growing this fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing all of that alpha around YouTube. Frankly, I could sit here and pick your brain for probably hours straight just around YouTube itself. But I want to touch on some other topics as well. Mostly just I think higher level content strategy type topics, and then I really do want to talk and pick your brain as well on building a video team, because I think that's also very actionable for startups and founders that might be listening to this. So. One question I did want to ask you while I had you on today was, can you tell me, like you touched on some of this, especially specific to YouTube, but maybe if there's anything else you want to add, feel free. Like, what do you think are, what would you say are the initial steps in forming a video content strategy? If you're like very early stage, like seed or series A, what is like ground level like to you?
I mean, it's a great question. I think it is similar to what I mentioned earlier. It's like figuring out a system that allows you to create quality content on a repetitive basis, and it's content that has an impact on your business. I think there's a lot of trial and error in the beginning, but I would say that you've got to focus on just a couple of platforms in the beginning. And I guess it's everything that I've mentioned so far. It's like, what problem does your product solve? Where is the audience that you want to target hanging out? So is that YouTube? Like ElevenLabs, we're targeting creators. Like they hang out a lot on YouTube. But for some other people, or if you've got a mobile app, that might be TikTok or Instagram. So figuring out where they hang out and figuring out what the content is that performs well on that platform and what the audience likes within that platform. And so I don't even know how I would define a content strategy. My approach is like, you just got to start making and then slowly iterate based on what does well. And so if I was figuring out YouTube, I would make like 10 YouTube videos, look at like the top performer from those 10, learn what performed, like why it performed best, and then make the next 10. And then maybe there's 3 that perform best. And that actually, a feature that I really like with YouTube Studio Analytics is the top 10. You constantly have the ranking of your top 10 videos, of your latest top 10 videos, sorry. And I think that's really important because it means you've always got your latest content top of mind and you can constantly study them. And so if like one video out of 10 performed really, really well, there's definitely going to be a reason it performed well. So what can you pull from that and apply it to the next? Because then the next batch, you might get 5 that perform really well out of 10. And so I think make, study, iterate, just repeat, rinse and repeat. I think I'm a big fan of just making the content. I don't think too much about strategy, to be fair, which is probably why I'm not super clear on that question.
No. And I think that's literally like the next topic I wanted to get into with you, because this is the one that baffles me the most. It's just the role of, I think, experimentation, and you mentioned trial and error. But just to summarize your answer there, it was, you said make. What was, you had a 3-liner there that was really concise.
Make, study, iterate. So like make the video, study why it performed well or it didn't perform well, and take those learnings and apply it to the next one. And I think I've kind of basically just summarized what Mr. Beast says. He says make 100 videos without looking at the numbers, and then when you get to 100, like look at the numbers and then apply it. But that's going to the extreme. But it's basically because once you start making, you kind of just start realizing things and learn things naturally. And so if you constantly just look back on the 10 latest videos as to why they performed well or why they haven't, and then apply your learnings to the next bit of content, you're only going to make better videos that perform better on the platform. And again, YouTube, like the social media platforms have gamed these algorithms to make them addicting. And YouTube has done a really good job at making the studio analytics addicting. And they basically put the most important metrics in your face all the time. And so if you think about just optimizing the most important metrics, it's inevitable that you'll start to slowly figure things out, make better content, and see growth no matter what content it is you're making.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I'd love to, let's switch gears to that topic specifically now. One of my top 2 or 3, I think, takeaways I want from you today is around experimentation. So for me, as someone who works in growth, marketing, I also consider you someone who at least has a foot in what you would traditionally call growth or marketing. I feel like experimentation YouTube analytics aside, all of that, I feel like experimentation is like way easier in basically every other facet of like growth and marketing, whether it's like A/B testing a landing page. I mean, knowing the statistical significance, it's formulaic. Everybody everywhere is agreed upon like what are the metrics we're measuring, what does success look like. It's very literal. Same with even like testing ad creatives on like a social ads platform like Meta or TikTok. I mean, it's literally like very explicit. The testing aspect is very straightforward. Getting results and doing a successful test is a totally different subject, but like the process to test is undisputed, very agreed upon universally. Video though in YouTube is just like, I mean, you mentioned Mr. Beast. He mentions like make 100 videos, don't even look back, and then once you publish 100, go back and view which ones worked. I hear sometimes Gary Vee, I feel like his advice is like, just plow ahead. If you have high conviction in a certain video format or style, like don't cut bait too soon. You have to persevere. I feel like video is just like a totally different animal in terms of testing. So do you feel like there are any major differences or things people should keep in mind that kind of like go against the traditional mental model for testing on other formats that you want to call out in addition to what you have?
I mean, it's a really good question, and it depends. If we're talking about experimentation, let's say just for YouTube, me personally, I try to leave probably about 10 to 20% for like experimenting with new formats or new ideas on top of like the strategy that you found that's already working. Because once you found what's working, you kind of just want to rinse and repeat that until it doesn't, because nothing works forever. And so you've got to constantly also look for new formats that could outperform what you're currently doing. And it's trying to consistently unlock new winning formats, basically. So yeah, probably like 10 to 20% in terms of experimentation. I would say don't give up on an idea that you have conviction about too soon, just because video, like you mentioned, is such a different game. It's very contextual, and it can be because you were a little bit more tired that day, or you phrase something ever so slightly differently. And I think it's very hard to A/B test some of these things. I think testing organic content's a lot harder. But so if you come from testing with paid, I would say on organic, give something at least 4 to 5 times more chance than when doing a test through paid. So if you would usually A/B test 2 landing pages, you found that A works better than B. For video, if you want to A/B test a new title style or a new format, I would definitely say do it at least 4 or 5 times before making a decision. And even then, it's tricky. It's kind of like having like full context awareness to all the different things that goes on. So it's more like try and test small things over time and slowly iterate. But I wouldn't be able to be like, okay, this video worked solely because of this hook, because the hook might have worked on one video, but maybe it didn't work on the next one because the audience is ever so slightly different. It's a lot trickier when testing with organic. But I think the best thing is just to not give up too soon on something that you feel good about.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great headline. That's a great mental model that I think people who, maybe if someone listening who they're a one-person marketing team or a solo founder, whatever the case may be, if you're used to testing on other channels, testing things that are a lot more explicit and cut out for you, maybe, CRO or something of that sense, like, video, give a little bit more cushion, give a little bit more shots on goal than you would on some of these more explicit channels. I do want to ask Alec, since we're kind of talking about experimentation in YouTube, are there any tools or like software that you recommend to help experiment with respect to YouTube?
It's a good question. Honestly, I used to use a tool called TubeBuddy a lot because that allowed you to A/B test thumbnails. But now YouTube have brought in native A/B testing that allows you to test 3 thumbnails, 3 titles. So honestly, I don't think there is an external tool that I use. It's kind of just if I write a script and I'm aware of something or I'm testing out a new thumbnail, I'll usually make notes on that Notion doc as to like the new thing I'm testing, and I'll tag it with a category. But as like external tools, I don't think so. An external tool that I'll use to do some research, there's one of 10 that allows you to find like outlier ideas. So it's videos that perform better than the average on a certain channel. That's a great way to find ideas. But that's not so much testing, that's more like research. And so besides like the in-house A/B testing or the in-studio analytics A/B testing on YouTube, I don't really use much. And a quick thing I will say with A/B testing thumbnails on YouTube, I actually like to not A/B test anything for the first 24 to 48 hours. Because if I use a thumbnail, I'll usually feel pretty good about it. And if it performs lower than average, or it's performing at average, later on I might start an A/B test. I don't know. I feel like it might affect the reach sometimes.
Yeah. So takeaways are, you said it, no excuses nowadays. You can get by and kind of crack it, or mostly crack it with Notion and YouTube analytics alone. So no excuses, everybody. You gotta just get to work.
Yeah, exactly. I think because video is so hard to like analyze, and as humans, we're the best being that can grasp all the different nuances of a video, and we can see things that tools and AI can't. And so I think it's, no excuses. YouTube Studio, Notion docs, and maybe analyze a script or two occasionally with Claude, but I don't even do that too much.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think the other interesting thing that you called out is just like, I don't know, I look at video and I feel like it's certain areas you have to put on your scientific hat, but a lot of it is just kind of more artistry. Like it's that you can't describe why it did or didn't work, or why you're gonna double down or cut bait, but it's almost like intuitive personally. And so you kind of just have to be an artist in that sense.
Yeah, that's one thing that, it's one thing I love and hate about content is sometimes I'll have strong conviction about an idea or a video, but I won't necessarily be able to say why, or it might go against the data that I've seen, but I'm like, this should work. I think we should keep on doing it, and we'll see how it does. But I think that comes after having made hundreds, and I think I've probably made and produced, like you mentioned, over 1,000 videos. But yeah, after having been in the game so long, I guess you kind of develop a taste to what works in the content style that you usually make. And outside of what I've made, I watch so much YouTube, whether that's actual breakdowns of how to be successful on YouTube, or how to edit YouTube videos, or just YouTube videos that I like. But yeah, I think that's something that you kind of slowly, subconsciously like learn about. Yeah,
makes sense. I would love, Alec, if we can, to talk now about building a team. So I think there are probably a lot of companies out there who, maybe they just feel this way already, or maybe they've listened to this episode and they're kind of realizing like the levels to this, and that, maybe they're looking at their own company and they're realizing there's a huge deficit there in terms of video. So I'd love to talk to you and just pick your brain on like building a team and what are the steps involved in that. So my first question is, in your eyes, what is the right or like the minimum viable video team kind of look like at different stages along the way? So I view it almost like maybe you're a startup who you just want to get something going. Like you want to start from square one and get some progress. That's like stage one. Maybe stage two is like, it's kind of starting to work and you maybe want to double down a little bit. And then stage three would maybe be like a little more like ElevenLabs, where it's just like, it is humming and you're just trying to pour the gas. Like what do some of the different minimum viable team structures look like in your eyes?
I guess just starting out, and I'll base this off like my personal experience. I think just starting out, if you want to get into video and content, the first thing would be to like hire just a generalist video person. And this person should be able to do everything within the video scope. And I say everything, I mean like ideation, research, filming, scripting, editing, but should also know like a little bit of graphic design for thumbnails. And this is a lot for one person, so you can't expect the quality of that person to be too high. And I guess it's to like, if you were looking for this type of person, I think there's kind of two routes you can go. When I found my job at Veed, I was basically a creator that hadn't figured out like the business behind it, and I hadn't seen a huge success with my own content yet. And I think if you can find that type of person, that's like the ideal candidate, because a content creator can do everything, like can do that full scope. I think you just can't expect them to then actually make content for all the platforms and have like a full. People expect too much of like their in-house content person. I think the first person needs to kind of figure it out. A second actually great person to look out for could be like a video editor that's got the potential to being in front of the camera, because video editors by nature have a little bit more taste and a little bit more attention to detail. And if they can edit videos nicely, they've got like the graphic design skills. So those are like the two kind of profiles I would look for like when starting. Moving on from that, like as soon as you figure out, you crack a format, whether that's TikTok or you figured out YouTube, whatever it is, the next thing, the biggest bottleneck you'll quickly have will be the video editing, just because making video and editing it does take so much time. And so that's the first thing we did at ElevenLabs. It was the first thing we did back at Veed when we started a second YouTube channel. So unlocking and getting a video editor basically unlocks like you'll increase the quality of the content you produce massively, and you'll also increase the output. After that, it can go a lot of different ways, and I think I've gone a few different ways here. Early days when I was building a team before ElevenLabs, I hired multiple generalists that could do a little bit of everything. And in hindsight, I do think part of that was a little bit of a mistake, because I basically written a playbook. I was doing everything from A to Z, and I quickly realized, well, actually, maybe we could have got like the video editing to be even better if we just had someone doing the video editing. Maybe we need a bit of an ops person that can help us actually figure out like the content calendar, the scheduling, all the posting, seeing what the strategy should be. And so when like you've got a successful, like well-oiled machine, I think ideally you've got like a couple of creators that focus on like the strategy, ideation. You've definitely got one in-house editor helping that team. And the next person, I think, should be like ops to help make sure everything is smooth, becomes a little bit more organized, and keeps on being a well-oiled machine. And so I definitely think that's something that we're going to be looking for at ElevenLabs pretty soon.
Yeah, makes sense. You touched on this earlier with your own backstory, but one follow-up question I have is for startups who are going 0 to 1 and they just want to hire, like you recommended, a full stack video person who they can do editing, they can script on camera, and they can kind of just be like a one-person department. In your eyes, how important is, there are a couple avenues that a startup can take to find that person, right? They can go the traditional route of putting out a job description. I know there are a lot of cases where they might just look internally to like their user base and see, or they might look online and see like, are there any influencers on TikTok or Instagram who have made videos about us before and who demonstrated good skill? Maybe we'll give them a job offer. There are all these different avenues. My question for you is, for a startup that's hiring their first person, which do you think is more important? Is understanding of the company's products and their market and kind of having all of that knowledge on day one, meaning maybe you choose someone who's already a user who can do video? Is that more important, or would you say just someone who has who over indexes on just the video skills? Like they're just a really good video creator, a really good full stack talent, but who doesn't know much about your industry. Like which is easier to learn on the spot, would you say?
I think that it's important to have someone that I guess understands like the basics of marketing. And going back to hiring the first person, maybe someone that leans a little bit more towards having had creator experience and that has grown an audience, shows that they know how to do it. I think focusing on someone that just has the video editing skills, they won't necessarily know how to adapt that to then flesh out like a content strategy and grow an actual audience. So focusing more on like the creator type of candidate first would be the best move. And then how to find those? I mean, that's a great question. I'm sure you guys have looked for creators at Opus, and it's very tricky. I always put out job listings. I think getting people to do a little bit of like a challenge to begin with is great, but trying to find candidates that have a track record of growing an audience, it's hard to convince them, because if they've seen success on social media, they want to go after that social media success. So that's a tricky
exactly. One. It is really the one of the hardest roles to hire for. I feel like it's like such a needle in a haystack kind of person you're trying to find. So yeah, absolutely. But I think I think you laid out a very clear criteria for like who companies should be looking to hire, what like kind of profile of person. So that was super, super valuable. I'm looking at time, Alec. I think I might just ask one or two more questions and then we'll look at wrapping up, just to be conscious of time.
Let's do it.
So I think we've been kind of circling some of these themes the whole conversation, but I would love to just ask you outright about taste. Because right now the whole conversation in this like, post media scarcity, post AI kind of landscape is like production is cheap, but like producing the right content is what's, more premium, and how, everyone calls that taste, right? I would love to hear from someone who's like walking the walk like yourself. Does taste in quotation marks, does that kind of cover it? Does it go deeper than that? Do you agree or disagree with that? Like, what are your thoughts on that whole dialogue?
I mean, that is a really good question, because I think it is like a recurring theme. And I've heard a lot about taste matters, and I 100% agree with it, to be fair. I think taste does matter. I would add to it that I guess taste can kind of be borrowed. Like, you see something that works and then you're like, oh, that's nice. This looks really nice. Let's also do that. And so on top of taste, I think it would be sharing or sharing things from like the unique perspective that you've earned over time. And so, for an example, everything that I talk about has been built over like the past 10 years. But when I first started out, I didn't really have that unique perspective. And so you've got to like, and I think this will stand the test of time, the fact that I've got this experience that I've kind of earned over time. Whereas if I was just starting now, I guess that's the whole conversation about like documenting over creating. Just starting out, it's good to document, but I think on top of that, I have now earned the right to create as well as document. And so I think taste 100% matters, but it's also like the unique perspective earned from experience over time. So I think that will like stand the test of time through AI. And I think when creating online as well, like there's all these tools now that it's like, oh, you can get an AI avatar to make all of your YouTube videos. Maybe in the future. But I think there still needs to be the creator behind it that has the context awareness as to like, okay, well, what should the hook look like? What's the trend that we kind of need to tap into right now? What actually lands best with this type of audience? Again, I think with video, there's so much nuance there that taste is 100% needed, but it does go deeper than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really well put. You mentioned like perspective. Some of that is like, what's your moat? Because your moat that you build that is hard to replicate in a lot of cases is like the expertise you've built up over 10 years, 5 years, whatever. So it's not just taste, but it's also like being cognizant of your unique perspective that you've earned, and kind of like making sure that gets manifested in what you choose to do. So that's a really really insightful addition there.
Good.
Last question I want to ask you. Last one, and then I'll let you get back to your day, Alec, is are there any startups out there that you see what they're doing with respect to video, or a strategy that they're trying out, that you look at them and you're impressed, or there's someone you look to for inspiration?
To be honest, like I get most of my inspiration from like what pops up in my YouTube feed and other creators, whether that's scrolling through Instagram and seeing what like Rook or Ben Kaluza make, and they're like two of like the top AI creators at the moment. But there's also just all the content that shows up in my feed. But if I was to talk about startups, honestly, not right now. But I do like respect. First of all, I've got to shout out Veed. I think that's the tool that kind of figured out the YouTube playbook. Even if I do say so myself, that they figured out YouTube for SaaS. I think looking at Synthesia, I was genuinely really impressed by what they did with. They had a TikTok account where they shared AI news, the latest trends, etc., using an AI avatar, and they kind of pioneered in that space where they were making social content with AI avatars before it was even a thing. And so and again, they probably found that like through experimentation, because they probably made a lot of content with AI avatars, and then they're like, oh, hold on, TikTok works. And so I always respect startups that are like trying something new, and as soon as they get a little bit of signal, they then follow that signal and like scale it like crazy. So yeah, from Synthesia, shout out to Uni and Kyle. I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, great example there. Great example. Well, Alec, I think those are all of my topics I wanted to get through. I think we can call it a day. I got to say, this has been a gold mine of value. I'm so excited to get this episode published and share it with teams out there who are trying to figure this out for themselves. So thank you sincerely. I do want to give you a chance. Can you?
Thank you.
For anyone who, this isn't enough and they need to hear more straight from you, like where can you be found online? Where do you recommend people follow you at?
You can find me on YouTube, Alec Wilcock, LinkedIn, Alec Wilcock. I share a lot on there at the moment. And probably just Google me. If you Google Alec Wilcock, you can find all of my platforms there, whether that's YouTube, X, Instagram. It's all there.
Humble
And
flex.
Parker, I just want to say, dude, thank you. This has been really good fun. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I'm excited to see the result.
Amazing. Yeah, the feeling's mutual. Thanks again, man. And to everyone listening, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.